because my good friend, there's a lot of talk about Deebo Samuel, and we're going to get into it. And you never know what to believe and what's true and what's not true. Now, I don't know everybody in the media, but one guy I do know who I do believe in his reporting skills because I know he's a scout and he doesn't just throw a bunch of crap against the wall and hope, 5% of it sticks is my good friend Tony Pauline. Tony is reporting today that the Niners have offered Deebo $19 million APY. So I tend to believe that. There was a report this morning that Deebo may want to play closer to home. Home being South Carolina. So would that be Carolina Panthers? Would that be the Tennessee Titans? I'm not really exactly sure. But what do you make of the Deebo talk so far? Where are you at with Deebo as far as this story? Do you think he wants out? I'll give you my 2 cents in a minute, but give me your perspective first.
Well, let's start with Tony Pauline because I've been following him for a few years now. And just as you said, he's generally spot on. And I feel like in a lot of these instances, when you don't know about a person or a person who's putting out these news, it's easy to take their what they're saying as with a grain of salt. So I just want to let people know that Tony Pauline is pretty spot on just because he's not a national reporter or viewed as a national reporter. The information he puts out is generally right. So with that said, I agree. I think he's right. And I think the real takeaway here is knowing that what he said, 19 a year, that doesn't mean the 49ers started there. I would go as far to say as they probably started even lower, which is why, there's this Deebo's been up in arms over the situation over the past couple of weeks. So I imagine, he wants to be paid more. He wants to be compensated a lot more. I think all of these things are true. I feel like with the situation that we're talking about, it doesn't have to be, hey, it's about this, it's about this, it's about this. It's probably a lot of everything, and that's why we're here. So there's so much going on. There's so much to debunk in this Deebo situation. I think there's a good chance that he wants to be traded because of the money. I think that, we haven't even talked about the potential of, California taxes, how much he's going to lose as opposed to playing elsewhere. So, we can take this conversation in a billion different ways. But, just based on how he's been acting on social media the last couple of days, when he's going out of his way to say, hey, this isn't true, and eventually deleting it, aka his agent is in his ear. Let's take it there. How much of this is Deebo being new to a situation, Deebo not knowing how business works, Deebo, people are paying him as immature, which I don't think is fair, but where do you stand on that?
Well, yeah, first of all, he called himself a wide back. So the idea that he didn't like his usage, I think, is all related to the money that's being offered to him. I think if I'm Deebo, I think he said, you know what? They said, we want to use you as a running back. He said, you know what? I want to win. Whatever you think's going to win. They said, we think we're going to win best with handing you the rock. He said, you know what? I'm a team guy. So I think he was fine with that. But I think he assumed that the 49ers would take care of him at the end of the year. And to me, the fact when they started utilizing him as a running back, I think that they should have had an internal conversation about, guys, this is a receiver that we're using as a running back. He's only going to be happy if we use him as a running back if we pay him as a receiver. You guys know that, right? And so now here we are, and I think Parag is really good at what he does, and he gets players at a lesser amount than some teams pay because he's a grinding negotiator. So I think what's happening here is that the 49ers are now looking at this player, knowing they use him as a running back and not wanting to pay him, commensurate with where the wide receiver market has gone, courtesy of Trent Baalke giving Christian Kirk so much money, and that the big dollars being thrown to wide receivers. We're seeing $70 million in excess of $70 million guaranteed. And I think the 49er guarantee, Kyle, is probably a whole lot south of $70 million. And so now I think he's got his agent and family members and friends and people that love him saying, hey, man, they're in his ear saying they're not using you the right way. So is he opposed to the way he's used, or is he opposed to the offer that he's getting after the way he was used? I kind of think it's more the latter.
Yeah, so what we've heard just from Schefter, just from Rap Sheet, just from the national media as of late is, Deebo doesn't want to be a running back. And part of that is probably because they're offering him low guarantees. And if he's going to be a running back, if he's going to have that much, tread over the next 4 years, why wouldn't you want a lot of guarantees up front, knowing that there's a high potential? He does have an injury history, and everybody's aware of that. If he's going to have the ball, as much as a normal running back would, the probability of him being hurt, just goes up. So if I'm Deebo, I want as many guarantees as I can get, especially up front. And I don't think that's the 49ers way. I don't think they're going to be willing to give him that guarantee, at least right away. So that's probably a big reason why both sides are far apart. And as you mentioned, that guarantee with AJ Brown, with DK Metcalf, probably closer to 50, closer to 55, where Deebo's probably looking at something closer to 45, 50. So it's far apart, and what's going to change? Like, who's going to budge first is a real question.
Well, and the other question is he going to be happy being his skill set is a dual skill set. He's a running back and he's a wide receiver. Yes, he was a wide receiver first, but he's both. And if you really want to maximize his skill set, which is the job of every offensive coordinator, you're going to use him as a running back. So is he okay being used as a running back for a different team besides the 49ers? I mean, it's like, if you want to be traded, you don't like the way you're utilized. So are you saying that you're only willing to be traded to a team that will utilize you as a wide receiver? Because aren't these teams, if I'm a team that's going to trade what the 49ers supposedly want, and we'll get into that, supposedly the Niners want a king's ransom, I would too. But if you're going to pay that king's ransom in draft picks or players for Deebo Samuel, you want to be able to use him where he's best. And he's best as a half receiver, half running back. He had 12 drops, but he's a unique talent with the ball in his hands. We all know that. You could argue I think he's in some ways a better running back than he is a receiver. So is he not happy with the way he was utilized, or is he not happy with the guaranteed money being offered? I guess that would be the question I would have. Is he okay being utilized as a running back if the money is better? Or is it really, does he really want to leave the 49ers, or does he just want more money? All these, I get the feeling that on both sides, these are all negotiating tactics. I don't get the feeling that we're really getting how the Niners actually feel or how Deebo actually feels about them. We're hearing kind of the rumblings from a negotiation where the details we're not privy to.
Yeah, it sounds like both sides can meet in the middle pretty easily here. And that's why the only tricky part is if there is a hard deadline, if they do feel like, you know what, we're not going to be able to reach a long-term extension with Deebo. And if they feel like they're only going to have him under contract for another year and he threatens to hold out instead of being franchised, that's when you think about moving him with a draft coming a week from now. But just as you said, I think it's more about, well, first of all, in my opinion, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL last year. And I know he doesn't have a high volume of carries, but there aren't players who you can turn around, hand the ball to, and know that he can turn that into explosive carry. And he did that game after game after game. He bailed the 49ers out a lot. And I feel like a lot of that's being ignored when we talk about Deebo Samuel. Everybody knows, how special of a season he was, but he was essentially their offense. They ran through Deebo, whether it's handing the ball off to him, whether it's just throwing a simple slant, giving him a screen, and him taking that to the house. So he has every right to be wanted to pay for the season that he just had. But the 49ers are thinking of longevity. The 49ers are thinking of, will he be able to give us that in 2022, 2023, 2024, and not just a couple games here and there? Because when you pay a guy top 3 money, you're expecting him to be there every game. And history would suggest Deebo's not going to be there every game. So again, I get it from both sides, and that's what makes the situation so tough. I don't think that there's a right answer.